Without further ado, oh, this is going to get real funky at the end, Nick. It's going to, like, all the keys are happening. 1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome at last to our master class in the form of a podcast called The Showrunner Show. Yes, The Showrunner Show. It's The Showrunner Show.
All right. Nice work. I like that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome to the Showrunner Show, everyone, where every week we demystify some aspect of the job of showrunning for anyone who works in TV, who wants to work in TV, or just wants to see how it all gets made. I'm Drew Dowdle.
I'm John Eric Dowdle.
And I am Stacy Shabosky. We are psyched you're here, and we are psyched to welcome. Oh my God, that was a disaster. And we're psyched to welcome Phillip Noyce.
Yeah, this week we're discussing the role of the pilot director. Phillip Noyce, we're so excited to have you on. Phillip Noyce has just been crushing the game for decades.
Forever,
yeah. He's an Australian film and television director known for a whole series of classic movies. I've probably seen 15 of his movies in the theaters.
In the theaters, yeah.
Yeah,
truly.
Dead Calm to Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger, Rabbit Proof Fence, The Quiet American, Salt, The Giver, and so many more. He's directed the TV pilots for series like What If, Revenge, and The Resident. He can do action, he can do political thrillers, drama, suspense. He can do it all, like a true director's director. So thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, yeah.
And I'll say Drew and I are especially excited to talk. Drew and I have directed pilots and written pilots, but we've never written or directed a pilot that somebody else that somebody else wrote or someone else directed. It's always been kind of our own insular things, where we really don't have any craft in working with a premier pilot director like yourself.
Yeah, they want to get all the tips of how can they be effective showrunners with a premier pilot director, because that's something they've never done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I try and make the pilot at least 4 times before we actually make the pilot. And that's the big secret of any success that I've had, is that, I have a team that works with me. Kathleen McLaughlin in New York, who works on finding images. Warren Thompson in Los Angeles, who works on finding sounds, music, and so on. And then on the edit. And we try and do a 3 to 5 minute version of the pilot, a trailer, in advance of shooting, which we share with the showrunner, the network, and the studio, and the actors, so that we can gradually all get into sync.
Wow.
So that's a long process and involves many weeks of collecting images and sounds and music, and then slowly compiling it, and then trying it out, starting with the showrunner, of course, because they're going to have a lot of notes, and then sharing it with the actors, and because they often contribute. In terms of, we use their voices as they get cast, they start to join in. Working with our music supervisor on each pilot, because music is so important in a pilot and in establishing a series. So we'll work with a music supervisor probably for about 3 weeks, trying different tracks and seeing which ones work. For Revenge, it was because of myself being an Australian, it was Angus and Julia Stone's song that became the song of the pilot and was repeated throughout the series. That was For You, I think, yeah. And then for The Resident, it was Bishop Briggs, The Way I Do, which finally became the sound of the pilot. And of course, the way the pilot is heard is so important in attracting the audience, but also in holding them. So that song, that anthem, the pilot anthem, becomes really, really important, and a lot of work goes into selecting that. The images, we try and make the pilot. We try and it'll culminate in a presentation to the network where they see and then can issue directives or pat us on the back or say, don't use that color, or we don't like this or that. And let me see, what did we have? The Resident. No, the Revenge. Revenge, Paul Lee was head of ABC at the time. And I think after we showed him the Revenge pilot, his only comment was, "Do we own that music?" And we said yes.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Means they like it, yeah.
And because we'd already bought that music from Angus and Julia. And then, like with The Resident, their comments were they hated the blue color. We'd used blue.
Like a filter or just like a lot of pops of color?
We had a cold palette.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And their comment, which was very helpful, if you go to the pilot for The Resident, you won't see any cold. No, sir. It's all warm and fuzzy. Just like you want to feel when you go to the hospital. You don't want to feel cold.
Yeah, that's great.
So we changed the color scheme, which was simple.
Phillip, are you just pulling images for this, or are you shooting fresh images, or is it a combination of the two?
Both.
Cool.
Both. And I mean, I can give you some of these if you want them.
Oh, we'd love it.
We love
God.
it. This is so interesting. I've never heard this kind of process.
I'll give you Revenge, which feels like it was made in prehistoric times, in terms of we were just getting used to the technology and everything, a final cut at that time, and then through The Resident. Yeah, and you'll see that that the trailer is the pilot.
Wow.
That's amazing.
It's absolutely the pilot, because we also work with the cinematographer, the final cinematographer, the production designer, the costume designer. So we start the costumes and the production design, and then because usually we start 6 weeks before, and so we're well advanced by the time these people come on. Some of them only come on, sometimes, a cinematographer 2 weeks before, costume designer 3 weeks before, production designer 4 weeks before you shoot. So we've already got a template, and then they work on top of that. So it becomes the pilot of the pilot.
That's amazing.
4 or 5 of them before we finally unveil it to the network, and all of the network's staff and ancillary and salespeople and blah blah blah.
Is this like your proprietary cool method that you've come up with, or is this standard practice? I have no idea. Or is it somewhere in between?
You should know the answer to that, because you're the guys who are talking to pilot directors.
We're searching for answers.
Oh, he's on to us. Yeah.
Yeah, we've only seen how we do it, so we're like, there's got to be a better way than just like, trying everything.
I don't know what other people do, but that's what I do. It doesn't work if decisions are taken away from you. For example, on What If, by the time I started, there was already a cinematographer, there was already a production designer, there was already a costume designer. So it was very hard assembling a team when all of those people had already been chosen. That was just because of staffing issues and the way that the show was put together. It also it does help. One of the problems for a pilot director is the relationship with the showrunner, which is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
and so this does help you to bond a little bit, beforehand, because they're able to say what they like and say what they don't like.
I love that.
And that's if I've had any issues on pilots, it's been in bad communication between director and showrunner. And one of those issues comes from the need for the showrunner to be close to the director when they're directing. But of course, what's happened, since we had a video assist, is that the director, when they're directing, they're not. We used to, when I started, I'd sit under the camera. There wasn't room for anyone else under the camera beside the ladies. But then we started having video assist, and pretty soon the video assist became a party. Everyone's there. All the assistants, and they're all looking at you, and you're trying to think, and oh my God, who are all these people? And, so I found that I had to just say, listen, this is my workspace. This is not a place for eating, drinking, talking, smoozing, texting, or anything. No one else is allowed here but me, just me and what's going on. That can sometimes be a problem.
Yeah.
I find it hard to work with someone literally, I can feel the breath on the neck, So, for example, Amy Holden-Jones on The Resident, having directed herself, many times in her wonderful career, she always put herself out of eyesight, out of earsight, around the corner, and she'd come over in between and this and whisper stuff and say stuff, which would often make all the difference between a scene working or not working. But she wouldn't be there all the time,
Yeah.
As I said, making the pilot several times beforehand helps you to overcome those particular problems.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Will you briefly just talk us through the difference between a like directing a pilot or directing episodic? I assume you've only done pilots.
For a pilot, you've got to edit really quickly. Like on Revenge, let's see, we finished on Saturday morning in North Carolina, and we previewed around America the next Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
So that was like I arrived home on Saturday afternoon, and it was like 21 hours until preview. 21 hours a day of editing.
Wow.
To a preview, and by Thursday we knew the series was going to go. We'd only finished shooting on the Saturday morning in North Carolina. And that's one of the great things about pilots, or compared to movies. Movies, the decision-making process can stretch on and on. We're going to put it in theaters. We're not. It's going straight to Hulu, blah, blah, blah. Or, pilot, you sign on, and 6 weeks later you're shooting, and then 6 days later, what's happened.
Yeah, it's true. It's like
Damn.
hyperspeed.
Years and years and years and years. Of course, so can pilots in development for the writers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Sorry, what was your question? The difference between episodic. Okay, so the first difference is you've got more time in episodic to edit, but not a lot of time. The second is just time. You get 12 or 13 days on a pilot to shoot, and then on episodic you'll get 8 or 9. You've still got to turn it in at 44:40, so you've just got to work a lot faster.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you don't have the problem of sorting out who's who and which character is working and which isn't, and who does the audience love, and all those things, which accent, all the questions that have to be worked out on a pilot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's that advantage. What I usually do is the pilot and then the first episode.
Okay.
The first episode, in order to pick up the show again several months later with the actors, and just settle into it. In the case of Revenge, it was also because we changed from North. It was set in the Hamptons, but we changed from shooting in North Carolina to shooting on the west coast of America, out of Los Angeles. So that was a big change where we had to, we had to continue the same design features and everything, but in a completely different situation. So reestablishing the look of the pilot and settling the actors into their roles becomes important in the second episode. I haven't directed beyond a second episode. That's not right. I did for what was it called? The horse racing show.
Oh, Luck?
Luck, Luck, episode 4. Michael Mann, yes, of course I did. I did Luck, episode 4. So there, and with a new cinematographer. But that was okay because Michael is such an iconoclast. He demanded originality from every director. So it wasn't like you had to fall into a conveyor belt.
Wow.
The opposite. You had to try and break the mold every time.
Yeah, interesting.
That's so cool. That's,
that was a particular series with a particular, well, not showrunner, because David Milch was a showrunner, but a particular leader, in Michael.
Yeah. God, What a team. What a team. But one thing to maybe, just mention too is like one of the differences with the pilot sets the whole tone, the look, the feel of the whole show. And then every other director after that is expected to sort of typically to follow and to try and emulate that tone and style and can continue on the look and feel that's established in the pilot.
Yeah.
But it sounds like maybe this was the opposite, or was it kind of a little of both? Yeah. Same look and feel, same color palette. On Luck.
On Luck, it was the opposite in a way. I mean, obviously, the main visuals came from the camera operator, Roberto De Angelis, who is an Italian Steadicam and a camera operator that Michael takes from, if you look, you'll see from show to show with the same Italian camera operator, and quite apart from the cinematographer, the lighting cinematographer, Roberto is the common denominator in so much of Michael's work. But Milch and Michael are both iconoclasts, and so they encourage others to be iconic in their choices.
Yeah.
That's really
I love
cool.
that. I would think it would be the opposite, I would think being an iconoclast might lead to a big ego. I don't know anything about them personally. I'm just, that it might lead to a big ego that might be like, do me, make it like me. So it's very cool to hear that it was the opposite.
Yeah, the opposite, yeah. Because
I think when you hire...
being like them would involve doing the unexpected.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
And I guess they wouldn't hire someone like yourself to do episode 4 if that wasn't the expectation that you're going to bring what you do to this, like a filmmaker in your own right that you are.
Of course, in that episode, a lot of the time I would just so it was almost like Michael was doing the directing. I would let Roberto lead, Roberto the operator.
Yeah.
And he would often turn around in the middle of a scene, what I thought was the end of a scene, but would turn out to be the middle, because he'd stand up and say, Filippo, what about we have to turn around on the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, my God, I'm sorry. Yes, of course. Of course we will. So,
Dude.
And I've used Roberto on pilots as well.
I admire those Steadicam, A-cam guys so much because, first of all, so smart, so artistic, but like human hippos, so strong, so physically strong,
Well, over the years, when I started, I thought that my job was to control everything. And then I was doing a film, not a TV show, in South Africa called Catch a Fire. And there I had a Steadicam operator, Englishman, and he taught me that the way to greatness is to not control everything, but the opposite is to unleash the creativity of everyone that you're working with, because the combination of creativity is much greater than anything that you could ever humanly come up with. So since that time in 2005, I've tended not to tell the operator what to do, but to rather let him tell me what to do.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that too.
And that's also John Huston's idea about choreography. He always felt that the choreography of a scene, and I knew him and went to his sets, should be handed over to the actors, because they're going to know where to stand and where to go and when to stand up and go to the window and all of this. Don't tell them, let them tell you.
Yeah.
I love that.
Try to approach directing too without being, too rigid in shot lists and things like that, because of exactly what you're saying.
Well,
Like,
shot lists. Shot list. No. You got to have a shot list.
no, but I guess
No. The reason, there's a very good reason.
Yeah.
Because in every day of directing pilots, series, movies, shorts, whatever, you've got to have an A, a B, a C, and a D plan.
Yeah.
And the only way, because you've got to be able to change and order it as the day progresses, because you've got to finish on time. You've got to shoot everything that's in the script for that day. But often you'll get behind, or you spend too long on this, or something goes wrong. So you've got to go to plan B, and if B doesn't work, C, and then finally D. And so therefore you've got to go into each day of a pilot, of anything, with a really big, a codified shot list. Which only allows you then to say, oh, I could combine 3 with 4, and 5 with 6, and so on.
That's exactly what I mean. Is not being rigid to stick with the shot list, because I feel like, we like to give the actors the freedom, like when we start blocking the scene, that they want to go to the window, like you said, or and we have an 8 camera Steadicam operator that we love, and without fail, when blocking the scene, he ends up thinking of something better than I thought of, and you change. What is this?
Ooh.
Oh, clear presentation.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, show and tell. Let's see it.
Is that clear presentation?
Very important.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
You got your boards,
beautiful.
yeah.
And on a pilot,
Oh, show us. Flip through.
Super important on a pilot.
Beautiful.
No, this is not clear presentation. I think this one is way back to Patriot Games.
Oh, it's Patriot Games.
Oh, it's Patriot Games.
I thought it was clear
In the
presentation.
early
Yeah.
90s,
Wow.
Patriot Games.
That's
All mapped out for everyone to see, beginning to the end of the movie, so that
did the whole movie.
Yeah, the whole movie. It's like a book,
I'm starting to get the feeling that the secret of your success, I'm sure you have many secrets, many successes, but it seems like so much of what you're talking about is about pre-production and preparation,
For a director, absolutely. Yeah. You must. Storyboards, for example, I've often given them to writers who have then written the scenes based on the storyboards. In certain cases, action only, not dialogue. You would never do that in dialogue. And in fact, in dialogue scenes, I don't use storyboards. Because I would hand the storyboard to an actor and say, and give any indication of that might alter their performance. It's only that, for example, that's the story. Those are the storyboards of the action scenes, and if you remember the film, there's a lot of action.
Yeah. Oh my God. Incredible. And here's a question. Like, do you approach, when you're directing a pilot, do you approach the directing process differently than when you're doing a feature? And if so, like, how do you, what are the differences in your mentality, shooting wise?
Not really. But there is more need to share. Because you have an obligation to a showrunner who's put their life on the line, and it could be life-changing for them. That's your first obligation, is to that person, the showrunner. And because they're the fountain of information and inspiration, there's that. And also because, in theory, in the hierarchy, you are working for them. On a movie, the theory of the hierarchy is everyone works for the director. So there's just a different. You've just got to adjust to that. The showrunner is going to go on for 168 episodes, and you'll be forgotten. You have to accept that going into it. You can't be too precious about what you're doing, because you are disposable, and there's another 10,000 of you up in them there hills, waiting for you.
If you're a
I'm
showrunner,
sorry, what was the question again? The
That's so
difference?
good.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
so
the
good.
difference in shooting, television versus features.
Well, also in television, you will tend not to do one-ers. One-ers get you into trouble. One-shot scenes, they only get you into trouble. That the showrunner or the studio or the network are going to come in there next week and say, "Well, why can't we cut to her?"
No.
You go in, yes, you'll do a one-up for something simple, and and you might in your mind say, well, if they want it shorter, we can start it later, and you're forced to do one-ups sometimes, but often, you just try and avoid them. Even to the extent of, on The Resident, shooting The Resident with John Brawley, who took over from the pilot cinematographer. Brawley would be a specialist in using a little handheld Blackmagic Australian camera, and say I was going to do a one-er because that's all I had time for. He would get the little Blackmagic, and we're tracking back with two actors, but he's in the side there getting, little insert shots, knowing for sure that we're going to need them for time cutting, for emphasis, whatever. So there is a difference. Coverage is so important in television. And, even though you don't think that the lady from the left is an important part of the scene, you just don't know what's going to happen later, when it all unravels. So coverage you got to have. You don't have to have it in cinema, and you can take the hit for that. The critics will say it was certainly long. But that's you're willing to run that gauntlet because it's only you that gets crapped on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Whereas
interesting.
on
That's
television, the whole thing can fall down if you can't cut away to the person who turns out to actually be the fulcrum of the scene. And you just didn't imagine it at the time, or later when you finally put the plot together, and then they find out that nobody cares about Tony Smith, number 5. So he's to the back of the list and in the series, and only you get what I'm talking about. How things change and how a series can grow and ebb and flow, but it can only do that if there's coverage.
That's so smart. Or you're right, because often the people, you're one or two leads, but then beyond that, sometimes someone shows up who's so amazing that you want to pull them forward.
They become permanent, and then they become prominent and permanent.
Yeah. It's really cool.
When you have it sounds like with coverage you need, different setups. How many shots do you tend to do in each setup? Or does it just change all the time?
You mean how many cameras or how many shots with each sequence?
Guys, help me with the language. Sometimes we've seen directors where they'll do the same setup of cameras and the same scene, and they'll do it 8, 9, 10 times.
She's asking takes. So
Thank you.
Setups are different camera angles.
How many?
Thank you.
How many takes? A maximum of 3, if you can.
Yeah,
All right.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
One to get everyone moving, 2 to do it, and then 3 to bank it.
Yeah.
What are we taught by our parents? Don't want to go to the bank and there's no money in the bank. The same. So number 3 is about money in the bank. It's about trying alternatives. Is he loud or very loud? Is he angry or very angry? Is she soft? Is she pushing or shoving? Is she pulling back? Not sure, but now let's bank some things. So you try, and number 3 is, and then later when you find you haven't got an answer to those questions, you just go to the bank, and as long as you've got something in the bank, like life, everything is okay. And our parents have been right. Again.
I love that. I like that smaller number of takes is kind of more our style too, and not
because what you realize after, it took me about 40 years to realize it, but nevertheless, is you don't need any more than that.
Yeah.
But what you do need is to change the angle, because that'll give you more opportunities and more ability to manipulate your show than over and over and over taking a take again and again and again.
Yeah.
Change the camera angle rather than go to take 4.
Yeah. I love that. And how many setups do you tend to do? Setup is shots.
Well, it depends if you have 2 or 3 cameras. So on a pilot, I try and have 3 cameras.
Great.
Yeah, we do too.
And the 3rd camera is usually doing something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's
because it's just in the way. Yeah.
And that's what is drilled into them. You're going to find the shot that no one would be mad enough to think of.
Yeah.
And because there's no room, they inevitably end up achieving that. But on a 2-camera setup, which is more normal, you probably do 60 a day, I suppose. 60 setups, meaning 30.
30 setups, 2 cameras. Yeah.
Yeah. In the old days, we used to only do 14 a day. But that was on film, when we used to have film. Of course, on film, so much time was taken adjusting the light.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't work quite with my light, but anyway, the eyes. If you couldn't see the eyes, everyone would go crazy. Well, nowadays it doesn't matter, because we go in and just do a little thing there and a thing there, and then press a button and suddenly it's there.
I know, it's amazing.
So that now lighting can so much be done in post-production, in the DI, the digital intermediate process of colorization. And a good cinematographer today, we used to, trimming the lights could take forever. I mean, okay, so they had to set them up and backlight, side light, blah, 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 blah. And then they had to trim them. And trim means, if the actor moved here, are the eye lights still hitting? So they have to get inky dinkies, little lights that shine just in the eyes and stuff. Well, all that's gone out the window now. What was the question? I'm sorry. What was the question?
I don't remember.
Oh, no.
Oh, we were just talking about
setups.
setups.
About the question.
The number of setups.
So the number of setups now has greatly increased because of we're working on digital, and we do so much of the lighting in post-production. Yeah. And the cinematographer works with the color grader now intimately,
Yeah.
later in the process.
Yeah, that's actually our test now for when we meet cinematographers. We're like, we like to not set any marks, and most cinematographers are like, oh, no, you can't do that. And the ones that love it are like, are going to move fast.
The good ones are absolutely in sync with that. Of course,
Yeah.
marks are a thing of the past, because we're not doing old studio lighting, backlight, front light, side light, kick light, and everything. We're now using a bounce lighting, off a whiteboard to send general light in the area, and then we'll even it out later, because you can always introduce shadows and everything in post-production. So the best cinematographers, don't use any light anymore, is the truth.
Yeah.
The sets are built or chosen with, lights like that, in position, and then lighting is done like that.
Yeah. It's like practical everywhere.
Yeah. Turn that one off, turn that one on, bring that one up, bring that one down.
Yeah.
And the lighting, they used to have guys who were, moving those lights, and now you see a gaffer. It's got a headphone and a microphone, and he just says, 7A up to 8, and he's talking about practical lights in the set that have been set there, and 5 minutes, you're ready to shoot. Not 3/4 of an hour as we used to wait so long.
Yeah.
So great. So I love that.
Remarkable how much faster you can move. It's true.
It's how much faster you can move. A film that cost $45 million in 1999 would cost 25 now.
Yeah, I know. It's wild. It's really incredible.
Yeah. And it's great because as you get older, you get slower. You get faster.
I know. We've been spending the last several years in TV where we're doing, 10-page days every day. And God, I'd love to go back to doing a feature and shoot 3-page days again.
What advice would you give to other directors as well as showrunners on working with A-list actors?
Well, depends how AA. You mean AAA or AA or just A or?
We're
They're
talking
all
like
AA, right?
Harrison Ford, Angelina Jolie, the A plus,
Nicole Kidman.
Yeah. Superstars, movie stars.
What would
When I
you?
went with Nicole Kidman, she was an ingenue, literally turning 18, 19 on set.
Wow.
But to answer your question, which doesn't necessarily apply to any of the television that I've done, your continued employment depends on your relationship with an AAA star.
Yeah.
They talk, gets around quickly. You're going to find that the studio does what you want, so long as the studio feels that you and the actor are in sync. Yeah. So it's as important as any other relationship you can have, and usually the most important relationship you'll have is with the AAA actor.
Yeah, that seems right.
That makes a lot of sense. Here's one question I really want. I'm always worried that each job will be the last, and I'll never you have highest level career spanning decades. What would you say is the key to that? The key to staying in it.
The key is that when I was about to become the worst animal in Hollywood, the Hollywood hack. I saw the lighting. I saw the light, and left $100 million movie with a $6 million payday, and went to shoot a movie in Australia for $6 million that wasn't financed, that would star nobody, that everyone told me would never ever get made, and if it was, no one was going to watch it. And that was Sum of All Fears was the movie here. Not the Quite American, but Rabbit Proof Fence was the movie there. So I left when I was inside of being that hack and reinvented myself, making a small film, which we then sold all over the world, completely proving everyone wrong.
Amazing.
And then I did Quite American straight after that. On the back of that, immediately shot 6 weeks later, edited the two side by side, They were sold to Miramax at the time. Both came out side by side in cinemas around the world. So that was a case of two things. One, reinventing myself, betting on myself, and being able to sneak away with my dual citizenship, American Australia, always had out. You know what? If that guy with that funny hair gets back in, you know where I'm going.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I have to say, for anyone who's listening or watching this who hasn't seen Rabbit Proof Fence, we cite that whenever we work with kids or have directors, we work with what some of the best children performances.
Well, wait for it, because it's coming out again soon. We've just finished.
Really?
Oh, amazing.
Last night we finished the 4K remastering. It took us 6 months. A team in Canberra in Australia, Sydney, Los Angeles, and Warsaw have been working on it, transferred the negative. We just finished it. It's coming out. It's coming out this week on Netflix in Australia in the 4K version, and it will soon come to America and around the world. Yeah, the new version. Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh,
amazing.
Congratulations.
Same movie, exactly the same movie. It's just that it's bigger and brighter and better and just beautiful, and in ways that wasn't possible then because it was finished on film as opposed to digitally.
Yeah.
Amazing. And
Amazing. I would love to see it again.
What advice would you give to other directors or, showrunner, like working with children?
Working with children, what I found, but that was in that particular case. One, when you're auditioning, don't expect the same levels of reading fluency, because that can often be a problem. You're better to test their ability to improvise, to imagine, to test their imagination rather than their reading of a script. The other thing is, again, only a lesson that I learned on that film, so it may not apply to everyone, and that is I did learn that, a 310-pound, 6'5" Australian can be a little scary for a kid. I don't know why. But, so I had a children's drama coach or a woman who worked with them and was with them, 20 hours a day and just working through their issues and everything intimately. So like another director in a way. But that was, again, it's a particular set of issues for those three little kids. What was your question? Working with children. I also found, it depends on the age, of course. Depends on the age. What I did in that film was not choose actors, but choose personalities. So each child had a particular personality, and they've still got them. They're exactly the same as they are now in their 30s as they were then. So the eldest girl is rebellious. She's still fucking rebellious. The middle girl is a dreamer, and the young one just can't stop cracking jokes and being amusing. And that's what they brought into the movie, and that's who the character was that they created, which was not about the script, it was about themselves. But, I cast types and then allowed them and encouraged them to be themselves as much as possible while having to, eventually read a script.
I love that.
The other thing that I did, and if you go down to younger kids, but with those kids, I got them to always get used to looking straight down the lens. Uh-huh. Now, of course, movies are not, they're total fabrications. We cut from him to me, from him to me, from him to me. So why does everything that I say have to be perfect, or everything he says have to be perfect? doesn't. It only has to be half perfect, because the other half you'll be on him. So with kids, I would teach them to act straight to the camera, and of course behind the camera is me, and I'm feeding them their lines. They're not acting with other kids; they're acting with me, and so I can give them direct instructions, or try. We're going home to mother. Kid would try it. So you cut it all together, and it is make believe. It's not that it's going to look like they're talking to each other, even though they were talking to you, or whatever the circumstances. With kids,
right.
Also ADR with kids. If you can do complicated things, but don't stress them, because they can re-record it just like everyone can. ADR, the automatic dialogue replacement, now is so useful. You don't have to torture a child. They'll do it later. Get the action right, move on. Get them in later. They can do it. They can re-record.
And I find too on set, like actors, you're never allowed to give an actor a line reading, do it like this. You're never allowed to kind of do that. But in ADR,
but you can with kids,
I guess little kids. I guess
you
little
can with
kids,
yeah.
But in ADR, I feel like every actor's like, okay, tell me exactly how you want this in ADR, because they want to get out of there. They want to go do do something else. So you can line read all day long in ADR, just not on
they
set.
They do, but you know what? Once upon a time, they used to hate ADR, but now I think actors are realizing that can be the whole performance. The nuance, the ability to stretch words and so on has enhanced that tool, and everyone's starting to recognize that.
Or that.
And also, one of the biggest tricks, one of the biggest tricks in ADR, I'll tell you this one, is to completely alter the loudness of your voice. And also another trick is get the mic almost in the mouth.
Yeah.
So you can actually Fellini taught me this. Okay, so I go out to see Fellini at Cinecittà outside Rome, doing one of his he'd never made a B movie. He's doing one of his lesser important movies, Orchestra Rehearsal. And he's got this fat guy with a high-pitched voice and re-recording the dialogue, and he's not happy. So he says to his assistant, go out to the canteen and get Giuseppe. Anyway, so while he's going out, he's scribbling. While they're getting Giuseppe, he's scribbling and everything. And in comes a thin guy with a opposite pitch of voice, completely different. And he hands him a whole new script. and completely changed it. Anyway, I said to him, no, that's remarkable. He says, listen, everyone thinks that the image is most important, but it's not. It's the sound. I said, what are you talking about? He said, the sound goes from the ear to the central nervous system, but the image goes from the eye to the brain. The brain has to tell you what the image meant. The sound hits straight away, That's why music is so important, because it's the final script. It can rewrite the script. You could take two flies on a wall and turn it into the most exciting movie with the right piece of music. Music rewrites the whole movie, the whole show.
I love that. Going back to your kind of pilot of the pilot, I think that's such a fascinating idea, and just how much time and attention you put into the music choice of that reel is really a cool method. And I think you're right. It's that is the vibe. It's the images and the color palette and all those things too. But the music is the vibe, and I think that's such an interesting
in a pilot
practice.
A modern.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really cool method, a really cool tactic. I like it a lot.
In summary, like one actionable tip of the week that I love is bet on yourself. Bet on yourself. Don't go for the big payday necessarily. Go for what feels right to you. What that authentic thing that you really want to tell, because that's without that mentality, there'd be classics like The Quiet American and Rapid Proof Fence we wouldn't have.
Yeah.
If you like our show, please consider taking a minute to subscribe and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. And please tell a friend. That all really helps us find our audience. Thank you.
And I'd like to say a special thank you to Sarah Mason for putting us in touch with Phillip. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.